A lot of people talk about how characters from fairy tale use the power of friendship, but besides Antilogia, no one talks about the powerful characters that just jump into the action. Now, there are a few characters like this, but the one I'll be talking about is Laxus. So let's talk about who he is exactly. Now, Laxus is actually the grandson of the guild master of fairy tale, Makarov. When he was first introduced, he was shown to be extremely arrogant and confident, but this was for a good reason. You see, Laxus is actually an S-class mage. Now, S-class mages in fairy tale are powerful wizards, extremely powerful actually, with only certain wizards being beyond that level. Meaning, when Laxus talks about how strong people are, you have to assume he knows what he's talking about, or you would think. Like I said, Laxus was extremely arrogant, so he tends to look down on others. For example, Urza. Urza is an S-class mage, so by no means is she weak. Now, if you're wondering why Laxus is like this to begin with, you get your answer in the Battle of the Fairy Tale arc. It shows a flashback between Laxus and Makarov arguing. Now, during this flashback, you see that Laxus' attitude comes from a misunderstanding to begin with, because since Makarov is a strong guild master, one of the 10 wizard saints in fact, and Laxus is his grandkid, most people tend to not give Laxus his credit. It also didn't help Laxus and Makarov understand each other when Makarov kicked out Laxus' dad, aka Makarov's son. Now, Makarov didn't kick him out for no reason, but at the time Laxus couldn't understand why someone would kick out family. Through these misunderstandings, Laxus became determined to surpass Makarov so he can prove he's his own man. Now, luckily, Laxus didn't stick with this attitude throughout the series. During the events of Battle of Fairy Tale arc, Laxus gets pissed off because he thinks under Makarov's name, Fairy Tale has become a laughingstock and weak. And remember, Laxus hated when people did that, so he took it upon himself to try and make the guild stronger and make it his home. Now, this wasn't a bad mindset, but the way Laxus went about was just entirely wrong. Laxus just wanted to make Fairy Tale respected and strong. Unfortunately, this led him to committing atrocities against his very own guild and the town as well. At the end of the arc, he finally gets a chance to have a heart-to-heart with Makarov, but for his actions of threatening the lives of his guild members, Laxus is expelled from the guild. After this, even though Laxus was expelled from the guild, he would continue to show up throughout the series, helping the guild in major battles. Not only that, but Laxus had developed a better attitude, no longer being extremely arrogant, but taking on a more chill personality and doesn't mind showing that he thinks of everyone in the guild as family. Now that you know something about Laxus, let's talk about how strong he is. Now, earlier I mentioned that Laxus is an S-class mage. If you're wondering what his abilities are, well, he has Lightning Dragon Slayer magic. If you've never seen Fairy Tale, the strongest characters in the show usually tend to be Dragon Slayers, one of the main reasons being what their attribute is. For example, Laxus can eat lightning and he is highly resistant to lightning compared to a regular mage. This logic applies to all Dragon Slayers, which is why they are such a threat. Especially Laxus, since his fighting style, he uses his lightning as much as he can. Like when he engages in melee combat, he tends to reinforce his hands with lightning. Not just that, but if you try to do a range battle with Laxus, he can also range back with strong attacks. Laxus has also been shown to be able to use Dragon Force. Now, Dragon Force is basically when a user becomes more dragon-like, gaining skills and increasing durability. He also has a few other abilities like Barrier Magic and Fairy Law, but he doesn't tend to use these. Laxus also was able to get stronger by removing the lacrima in his chest that gave him Dragon Slayer magic to begin with, making him an artificial Dragon Slayer. Now, even though he doesn't have a lacrima in his chest anymore, he can still use Dragon Slayer magic, I'm guessing because he had it in his chest for so long. By the way, I forgot to mention he also has Red Lightning, which is basically just explosive lightning. Now, using these abilities, Laxus has did incredible feats like fighting Nasu and Gajil at the same time, fighting Hades, the former guild master of Fairy Tale, members of Zeref elite soldiers. He beat Raventail, a guild made by his dad. He defeated everyone in his guild by himself, including his own dad, winning a 5v1. Laxus has even went on to beat other Dragon Slayers. Now, sad to say, Laxus isn't in the top 10 strongest in the verse, but he's still a character to be reckoned with, knowing anytime he's on the screen, he means business. That's one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite characters from the series. Now, I'm pretty sure I mentioned most of the stuff about Laxus, but if I didn't, let me know. But besides that, that's basically it.